The vast emptiness of space carried many secrets, but none as urgent as the signal pulsing through the darkness. In the grand chamber of the Galactic Coalition headquarters, blue lights flashed across the curved ceiling. This was not a routine. Alert, signal classification, distress, priority, maximum, origin, nexus system. The automated voice echoed through the room as Coalition officials hurried to their stations. High Counselor Vren, a tall figure with shimmering silver skin, rose from the central platform. His four eyes blinked in rapid sequence, a sign of deep concern among his species. The other council members fell silent. "Show me," Vren commanded. The main view screen activated, revealing a star map with a pulsing red dot at its edge. The Nexus system, home to the Luminari, a gentle species known for their art and philosophy rather than warfare. The message began to play. "This is Governor Trill of Luminary Prime. We are under attack. Unknown vessels have entered our system. They've already destroyed our outer colonies. Millions dead. Our defenses cannot hold. Please, anyone receiving this message, we need help. The invaders call themselves the Void Dominion. They show no mercy, they take no prisoners. The message cut to static. The council chamber erupted in worried voices. "The Luminari are pacifists," said Counselor Mox, a reptilian being whose scales changed color with his emotions, currently a worried purple. "They barely maintain a defense fleet." "The Void Dominion," whispered another counselor. "We thought they were just stories to frighten children." Vren raised a hand for silence. "What forces can we send to assist?" The military advisor, a robotic entity named Dex-5, stepped forward. "Our nearest battle group is 3 weeks away at maximum speed. Based on this message and our limited knowledge of the Void Dominion, the Luminari will have fallen long before help arrives." "There must be something closer," Vren insisted. Dex-5's lights flickered, the equivalent of a grim expression. "There is nothing within range that could stand against a Void Dominion warfleet." The room fell silent again. Millions of lives hanging in the balance, with no way to save them. Then, from the back of the chamber, a voice spoke. "There is one option." All eyes turned to Ambassador Reed, the oldest member of the council. Reed rarely spoke during emergency sessions, preferring to watch and listen. When he did speak, everyone paid attention. "The Deathworlders," Reed said simply. The reaction was immediate. Some counselors gasped, others began to protest. "Impossible. Too dangerous. We cannot." Vren raised his hand again. "Explain, Ambassador." Reed walked slowly to the center of the chamber. Though his body was frail with age, his mind remained sharp. "The humans of Earth. Their system is less than 3 days from Nexus at maximum speed." "The Isolation Treaty," began Counselor Mox, "allows for contact in cases of galactic emergency," Reed finished. "This qualifies." "The humans are untested," Dex-5 pointed out. "They've never fought beyond their own moon. We have no data on their military capabilities against Void Dominion technology." Reed smiled faintly. "That's not entirely true. We've been watching them for centuries. They may not have faced the Void, but they've faced each other. Their planet is a Class 12 death world, the highest inhabited gravity world we've discovered. Their evolutionary path created beings of remarkable strength and endurance." Reed activated his personal display, showing images of human military exercises. Soldiers carrying heavy equipment up mountains, warships cutting through rough seas, aircraft performing maneuvers that would tear apart coalition vessels. "Most importantly," Reed continued, "they've mastered the art of warfare in ways we never needed to. The humans have been fighting since they first picked up stones and sticks. It's in their nature." "Which is precisely why we isolated them," Mox argued. "Do you suggest we hand weapons to predators?" "I suggest," Reed replied calmly, "that predators may be exactly what the Luminari need right now." Vren studied the images thoughtfully. "Even if we decided to request their help, would they give it? They don't know the Luminari. Why would humans fight and die for strangers?" "Because it's also in their nature," Reed said. "For all their violence, humans have a strong protective instinct. They value courage and sacrifice. Their stories are full of heroes who save others at great personal risk. He paused. Besides, we won't ask them to do it for nothing. We'll offer technology and knowledge we've withheld under the treaty. The council debated for hours while the distress signal continued to repeat. Finally, Vren called for a vote. The decision was made. They would contact Earth. 2 days later, Ambassador Reed sat alone in a diplomatic vessel approaching the edge of Earth's solar system. As the senior coalition expert on human behavior, he was the obvious choice for this mission. Still, he felt uneasy. No official coalition representative had spoken directly to humans in over a century. Earth's defense systems detected his ship. Immediately, a gruff voice came through the communication system. Unidentified vessel, you are approaching restricted space. Identify yourself and state your purpose. This is Ambassador Reed of the Galactic Coalition, requesting emergency audience with Earth's leadership regarding a matter of life and death. There was a long pause. Transmit verification codes and maintain current position. Reed sent the codes that proved his identity. For nearly an hour, his ship drifted at the edge of the solar system, while Earth's authorities discussed this unexpected development. Finally, the communication system activated again. Ambassador Reed, you are cleared to approach Earth Orbital Station Alpha. Escorts will guide you. Any deviation from the assigned path will be considered hostile action. 6 small but heavily armed ships appeared on his sensors. The humans were taking no chances. As his ship approached the blue-green planet, Reed watched the orbital defenses. The humans had built an impressive array of satellites, stations, and weapon platforms, far more advanced than Coalition intelligence had reported. They had been busy during their isolation. The docking procedure at Station Alpha was efficient. When the airlock opened, Reed found himself facing a group of humans in formal military uniforms. At their center stood a tall woman with short gray hair and eyes that seemed to see through him. Ambassador Reed, she said, not offering the customary human handshake. I am General Diana Wells, representing Earth's United Defense Command. You claimed this was an emergency. Reed nodded. Thank you for receiving me, General. It is indeed an emergency, not for Earth, not yet, but for millions of innocent lives. Explain, she said simply. A peaceful species called the Luminari are being slaughtered by a force known as the Void Dominion. None of our forces can reach them in time. Reed paused, meeting her eyes directly. But yours can. General Wells studied him for a long moment. You've kept us contained in our system for a century, and now you want our help? Yes, Reed answered honestly. Because while we feared your capacity for violence, we now desperately need it. The General's expression didn't change, but something flickered in her eyes. Perhaps interest, perhaps pride. Come with me, Ambassador, she said. You'll need to tell our full council exactly what you're asking for. As Reed followed her through the station, he noticed the way the other humans moved, with a fluid grace that belied their strength. Natural predators, evolved on a world that had tried to kill them at every turn. He hoped they would agree to help, and he hoped the Coalition wouldn't regret unleashing them on the galaxy. The meeting chamber inside Earth's orbital station Alpha hummed with tension. Ambassador Reed stood before the United Defense Command Council, 12 stern-faced humans who held the military fate of their planet in their hands. His presentation on the Luminary crisis had just ended, and now he waited as they processed the information. Commander Jack Stone, head of the UDC, leaned forward. His weathered face showed the scars of Earth's unification wars, conflicts that had finally united humanity under one banner after centuries of division. His deep voice broke the silence. Let me make sure I understand this correctly, Ambassador, Stone said. You've kept us confined to our solar system for over 100 years. You've denied us access to galactic technology. You've monitored our communications. And now you want us to send our ships and soldiers to fight in a war that isn't ours. Reed nodded slowly. Yes, Commander, that is exactly what I'm asking. A woman with dark skin and sharp eyes, Admiral Helen Cruz, snorted. Why should we care about these Luminari? What are they to us? They are innocents, Reed replied simply. They have never harmed anyone. Their culture is built on knowledge and creation, not destruction. The Void Dominion is the opposite. They consume, destroy, and move on. If they are not stopped at Nexus, they will continue until they reach other systems. Eventually, they would find Earth. So it's in our interest to stop them now, said General Wells, who stood behind Reed. Yes, Reed agreed. But there is more. The Coalition is prepared to offer Earth full membership if you help. This means access to all our technology, all our knowledge, and free travel throughout Coalition space. No more isolation. The Council members exchanged glances. This was no small offer. Commander Stone's expression remained neutral. Show us these Void Dominion forces again. Reed activated his holographic display. Images of black spike-covered ships appeared along with data on their weapons and defenses. The Council's military experts studied the information carefully. One of them, a tactical specialist named Director Rodriguez, whistled softly. Their tech is advanced, but their tactics are straightforward. No subtlety. They rely on overwhelming force rather than strategy. Can we defeat them? Stone asked. Rodriguez nodded. Based on this data? Yes. Their ships are powerful, but slow to maneuver. Their weapons are destructive, but have longer recharge times than ours. We'd have the advantage in a mobile engagement. Stone turned back to Reed. And the Luminari? What help will they provide? Reed hesitated. The Luminari are not warriors, Commander. They have defensive capabilities but limited combat experience. In truth, your forces would be doing most of the fighting. Of course, muttered someone at the table. Stone silenced them with a look, then studied Reed carefully. There's something you're not telling us, Ambassador. Why didn't the Coalition send their own ships? Surely you have military forces. Reed sighed. This was the difficult part. We do. But our species evolved on worlds very different from Earth. Low gravity, stable, climates, few predators. Most Coalition races cannot physically endure extended combat. Our bodies break easily. We tire quickly. We lack your resilience. You're saying we're physically superior? Admiral Cruz asked. In terms of combat capability? Yes, Reed admitted. Your world is what we classify as a death world. High gravity, extreme weather variations, dangerous wildlife, and natural disasters. These conditions created humans who are stronger, faster, and more durable than most galactic species. You can survive injuries that would kill us. You can fight longer, harder, and in more extreme conditions. The room fell silent as the humans absorbed this information. You're afraid of us, Stone said finally. It wasn't a question. Reed met his gaze directly. Yes, Commander. Some members of the Coalition fear what humans might do if given access to advanced technology and free movement among the stars. That is why the Isolation Treaty was created. Yet here you are, Stone observed. Because fear of the Void Dominion is greater, Reed replied honestly. Stone leaned back in his chair and looked around at his council. We'll need to discuss this in private, Ambassador. General Wells will escort you to the waiting area. Reed bowed slightly and followed the general out. As the door closed, he heard the heated debate begin. In the station's observation deck, Reed stared out at the blue-green planet below. Earth was beautiful, a jewel of life in the darkness of space. The humans had done remarkable things despite their isolation, recovering from centuries of war to build a unified global government. General Wells stood silently beside him. After several minutes, she spoke. They fight hard in there, but they'll agree to help. Reed glanced at her. You seem certain. I know my people, she replied. Humans can't ignore a cry for help. It's not in our nature. Even when it comes from aliens who have kept you isolated, Reed asked. Wells smiled faintly. Especially then. We love proving others wrong about us. 3 hours later, Reed was called back to the council chamber. The mood had changed. There was a new energy in the room, a sense of purpose. Commander Stone stood as Reed entered. The United Defense Command, with the approval of Earth's Global Council, has made its decision. Earth will send a fleet to assist the Luminari. Relief washed over Reed. "Thank you, Commander. How soon can your forces be ready?" Stone's expression was grim but determined. "The battleship Thunderchild will lead a fleet of 15 vessels. We can depart within 24 hours. Reed couldn't hide his surprise. "So quickly?" "We maintain our forces at high readiness, Ambassador. It's a habit from our more troubled past." Stone touched a control panel, and a large holographic display showed the ships being prepared for departure. The largest Thunderchild was massive, nearly 2 kilometers in length, bristling with weapons. "We'll carry a full complement of troops, aircraft, and ground vehicles," Stone continued. "Director Rodriguez will serve as fleet commander. I'll be taking personal command of ground operations." Reed nodded slowly. "The Coalition appreciates Earth's swift response." "Don't thank us yet," Stone replied. "We haven't won anything." The next day, Reed stood with Earth's leaders as the human fleet prepared to depart. The ships were impressive, sleek yet solid, clearly built for both speed and durability. Unlike the elegant curves of Coalition vessels, human ships had a functional, almost predatory appearance. Earth's global president, a dignified woman named President Rivera, addressed the departing forces via video link. Her speech was brief but powerful, speaking of humanity's first steps beyond their solar system and their commitment to protecting innocent life. As the fleet began to move out of orbit, Reed noticed something unusual on the side of each ship. Newly painted symbols showing Earth alongside a representation of the luminary homeworld, connected by a beam of light. "What does that symbol mean?" he asked General Wells, who stood watching the departure. "It's an old human tradition," she explained. "Ships going into battle together create a shared emblem. It means, we stand together." Reed felt an unexpected emotion watching the human vessels accelerate toward the jump point that would take them to Nexus. For all their fearsome reputation, humans had a capacity for loyalty that was rare in the rare galaxy. As the Thunderchild, the last ship, prepared to depart, Commander Stone's voice came over the communication system. "Ambassador Reed, I have a message for your coalition. Tell them that humanity is coming out of isolation. Tell them we're starting by saving the Luminary. And tell them that after this, the galaxy will never be the same." The massive battleship engaged its drives and followed the fleet, leaving Reed to wonder if he had just saved the Luminari, or changed the course of galactic history forever. The human fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Nexus system in perfect formation. 15 warships, their metal hulls gleaming under the light of distant stars, weapon systems already powering up. At the center, the massive battleship, Thunderchild, led the way, its engines glowing blue against the blackness of space. On the bridge, Captain Lisa Freeman stood with her hands clasped behind her back, studying the tactical display. The Luminari homeworld appeared as a green sphere on the screen, surrounded by red markers indicating void Dominion vessels. "Scan complete, Captain," reported the sensor officer. 27 enemy ships in orbit around the planet. 3 larger vessels holding position at the system's edge. Ground forces deployed in the northern continent. Freeman nodded. "Life signs on the planet?" "Millions, but declining rapidly. The void forces are systematically attacking population centers." Freeman's jaw tightened. They had arrived just in time to witness a slaughter. "Open fleet-wide channel." "Channel open, Captain." Freeman took a breath. "This is Captain Freeman. All ships battle stations. Red Squad will engage the orbital forces. Blue Squad will target the 3 command ships. Thunderchild will break through to the planet and deploy ground forces. Remember your training. Remember why we're here. Freeman, out." Throughout the fleet, alarms sounded as crews rushed to their positions. Inside massive hangars, soldiers loaded into dropships, their faces grim with determination. Commander Jack Stone strode through the Thunderchild's main hangar, inspecting the troops. Major Tom Wilson, his ground forces commander, fell into step. Beside him, "The men are ready, sir," Wilson reported. "Drop pods primed for the first wave. Heavy armor and support units will follow in the transports." Stone nodded. "The void forces don't know we're here yet. We'll use that surprise to our advantage." He looked around at the soldiers preparing for battle, human fighters about to engage in humanity's first interstellar war. Make it clear to everyone. Protect the Luminari civilians at all costs. Understood, sir. Across the system, on the bridge of the largest Void Dominion vessel, Warlord Drex received shocking news. Unknown fleet has entered the system, Warlord, reported a panicked subordinate. 15 vessels, configuration unknown. Drex, a tall figure covered in black armor with glowing red lines, turned toward the view screen. The Coalition, he growled. Sooner than expected, show me. The image appeared, and Drex frowned behind his helmet. These were not Coalition ships. They were more compact, more heavily armed, with none of the sweeping elegance of Coalition design. Who are they? He demanded. Before anyone could answer, alarms blared across the bridge. They're moving fast, Warlord. Energy signatures indicate. Weapons charging. Drex wasn't concerned. His forces outnumbered these newcomers. Order all ships to engage. Crush them quickly, then we continue the harvest. The human fleet accelerated, splitting into the planned attack groups. The Void Dominion vessels moved to intercept, their black spike-covered hulls ominous against the stars. They're taking the bait, Freeman said, watching the Void ships move away from the planet to engage Red Squad. Blue Squad, commence attack run on their command vessels. Thunderchild, full speed ahead. Break through to the planet. The human ships surged forward, their engines flaring. The first volleys of energy weapons crossed the void of space. What happened next shocked both sides. The Void Dominion fired their main cannons, powerful energy beams designed to slice through Coalition hulls with ease. But the human ships didn't shatter as expected. Their advanced armor absorbed some of the impact, and their superior maneuverability allowed them to evade the worst of the barrage. Then the humans returned fire. The Thunderchild's main guns unleashed devastating salvos that tore through a Void cruiser, breaking it in half. The smaller human vessels darted between enemy ships, firing precisely at weak points that the Void Dominion didn't know they had. On his flagship, Warlord Drex watched in disbelief as 3 of his ships exploded, in rapid succession. What are these creatures, he demanded. Increase power to forward shields, all ships concentrate fire on their largest vessel. But the Thunderchild was already plowing through the battle line, its point defense systems shredding incoming fire, while its main guns cleared a path. Behind it, the rest of the human fleet engaged the confused Void forces in a chaotic dance of destruction. Inside the Thunderchild, Stone felt the ship shudder as it took hits. Damage report, he called. Shields. At 60%, minor hull breaches on decks 5 through 7, came the response. Repair teams responding. Stone nodded. The ship could take it. Begin drop sequence. Throughout the massive vessel, hundreds of drop pods were loaded into launch tubes. Inside each pod, 4 human soldiers checked their weapons one final time. Droppy. Pods away. From the underside of the Thunderchild, hundreds of small objects shot toward the planet below, trailing fire as they entered the atmosphere. Behind them came larger transport ships carrying tanks, artillery, and support equipment. On the Luminari homeworld, the few surviving defenders watched in awe as the sky filled with falling stars. In the Grand Council chamber of the capital city, Governor Trill and the remaining leaders huddled behind makeshift barricades. The elegant crystal dome above them was shattered, and the bodies of their fallen guards lay scattered across the ornate floor. Outside, Void Dominion ground forces advanced through the streets, systematically destroying everything in their path. The Luminari, with their slender bodies and delicate features, were no match for the armored invaders. The end has come, whispered one council member. We should have built more defenses. No, Trill replied firmly. We stayed true to our principles. If we die as Luminari, not as warriors. A tremendous boom shook the building. The council members looked up fearfully, expecting more Void troops. Instead, a strange metal object crashed through the remaining glass of the dome, landing with a thud on the council floor. The object hissed open, and 4 figures emerged, bipedal, beings in dark armor, carrying weapons unlike anything the Luminari had seen. One of them stepped forward and removed his helmet, revealing a face with 2 eyes, a mouth, and short brown hair. features surprisingly similar to the Luminari themselves, though more robust. "Governor Trill?" the being asked. "I'm Lieutenant Rob Parker, Earth Special Forces. We're here to help." Across the city, similar scenes played out as human soldiers deployed from their drop pods. The Void Dominion troops, expecting little resistance, found themselves suddenly engaged with enemies who moved with shocking speed and precision. Major Wilson established a command post in a bombed-out building near the city center. Reports flowed in from his units as they secured key locations and evacuated civilians. "Sir," called a communications officer, "Captain Freeman is requesting an update." Wilson activated the comm link. "Wilson here. We've established beachheads in all major population centers. Heavy resistance in sectors 3 and 4, but we're pushing them back. Civilian casualties are high, but we're getting survivors to safety." Freeman's voice came through clearly. "Good work, Major. The space battle is turning in our favor. We've destroyed 12 enemy vessels, and the rest are breaking formation. Commander Stone will be joining you on the surface within the hour. Hold your positions." "Understood, Captain." As Wilson ended the transmission, a massive explosion rocked the building. Outside, a Void Dominion assault vehicle had turned the corner, its weapons targeting the human command post. "Take cover," Wilson shouted, diving behind a fallen column. "Theo." Vehicle fired again, blasting away part of the wall. Wilson expected his soldiers to retreat to better positions. Standard tactical doctrine called for it when facing superior firepower. Instead, he watched in amazement as 3 of his troops charged directly at the vehicle. Moving with incredible speed, they dodged energy blasts, tossed grenades to disable the vehicle's sensors, then climbed onto its hull. One soldier planted explosive charges while the others provided covering fire. Seconds later, they leapt clear as the vehicle exploded from within. Wilson shook his head in disbelief. The battlefield reports had been right. Humans fought differently than any species in the galaxy, more aggressively, more adaptively, and much, much more effectively. By nightfall, the humans had secured the capital city and established a defensive perimeter. The Void Dominion forces had pulled back, regrouping for what would surely be a massive counterattack. In the relative safety of the Central District, Luminari civilians emerged from hiding to see their strange saviors. Children with wide, curious eyes approached the human soldiers who shared water and food rations with them. Governor Trill stood with Commander Stone, watching this unexpected interaction. "Your people fight like nothing we've ever seen," Trill said quietly. Stone's expression remained neutral. "We fight to win." "The Void will return with greater numbers," Trill warned. Stone nodded. "We're counting on it." In orbit above, the remaining Void Dominion ships were retreating to the system's edge, where they sent urgent messages to their fleet headquarters. The humans had won the first battle, but the real war was just beginning. 3 days after the initial battle, the skies above Luminari Prime darkened with the arrival of the Void Dominion's main battle fleet. 50 warships, each larger and more heavily armed than those in the first wave, emerged from hyperspace in perfect attack formation. At their center loomed the dreadnought Oblivion, a vessel so massive it cast a shadow on the planet below when it passed between Luminari Prime and its sun. On the bridge of the Oblivion, Warlord Creve surveyed the battlefield with cold calculation. Unlike Drex, who had underestimated the human forces, Krev was taking no chances. He had studied the recordings of the first battle carefully. "Report on enemy positions," he commanded. His second-in-command stepped forward. 15 human vessels. Remain in orbit, Warlord. They appear to have sustained moderate damage from the previous engagement. Ground forces are concentrated in the major cities with their heaviest defenses around the capital. Krev nodded, his red eyes glowing beneath his helmet. "And what of these humans? What have we learned?" "They are from a world called Earth, previously unknown to us. They fight with unusual tactics, aggressive, unpredictable. They seem to possess physical capabilities beyond those of other known species. Weaknesses? Their ships, while well-armed, lack the raw power of our larger vessels. Their numbers are limited. If overwhelmed, they will fall." Creve turned to his war council. "We will crush them with overwhelming force. The main fleet will engage their ships while we deploy our entire ground army. No survivors, no prisoners. These humans have made a grave mistake interfering in our harvest. On the surface of Luminary Prime, Commander Stone received the news of the Void Dominion's arrival with grim determination. In the makeshift command center established in the IT Luminary Council building, he studied the holographic display showing the enemy fleet. "They've brought their full strength as expected," he said to Major Wilson and Captain Freeman, who had come planetside to coordinate the defense. 50 ships against our 15, Freeman noted. "Not great odds." Stone's expression didn't change. "We don't need great odds, we just need to hold them long enough." He turned to a communications officer. "Send the signal." Throughout the human fleet, captains received the coded message they had been waiting for. Hidden systems activated, and carefully planned maneuvers began. In orbit, the human vessels started to pull back, appearing to retreat from the overwhelming Void Dominion force. "They flee!" exclaimed one of Krev's officers. "Shall we pursue?" Krev watched suspiciously. "No. This retreat is too orderly. Maintain formation and advance slowly. Begin planetary bombardment of their ground positions." The massive guns of the Void Fleet opened fire, sending energy beams toward the surface. Most targeted the empty countryside, as the human forces had established their bases primarily in urban areas, using the Luminary cities as cover. On the ground, Stone felt the impacts through the building's foundation. "They're trying to flush us out," he remarked. "Status of Operation Trojan?" Wilson checked his tactical display. "Ready and waiting, sir." Stone nodded. "Tell our ships to proceed with Phase 2. In space, the human fleet suddenly changed direction, accelerating directly toward the Void Dominion's right flank. The maneuver was so unexpected that several enemy vessels were caught out of position. The Thunderchild led the charge, its main guns firing non-stop as it plowed through the enemy formation. Krev's bridge erupted in alarms as 3 of his ships exploded simultaneously. "What happened?" he demanded. "The humans have some kind of new weapon," an officer reported frantically. "They're targeting our power cores directly." Indeed, the human fleet had been modified during the 3-day respite. Engineers had worked around the clock to adjust their weapons based on data from the first engagement, finding the exact frequency needed to penetrate the void shields and target their vulnerable reactor cores. "All ships, defensive pattern Delta," Krev ordered. "Concentrate fire on their flagship." The space battle intensified as the void ships regrouped. Despite their ingenuity, the humans were still outnumbered. The Thunderchild took multiple direct hits, its shields flickering and failing. But the space battle was only a distraction. On the surface, Major Wilson gave the command that would change the course of the war. "Launch now." From hidden positions across the planet, hundreds of small, stealthy craft rose into the atmosphere. These were not the obvious drop pods of the first assault, but specialized infiltration vessels developed by Earth's best engineers. Their hulls absorbed radar and energy scans, making them nearly invisible to Void Dominion sensors. Inside each craft were 6 human soldiers, the best Earth had to offer. Their mission: board the enemy ships and wreak havoc from within. The first infiltration team landed silently on the hull of a Void cruiser. Using cutting tools, they opened an access panel and slipped inside. The Void troops, focused on the external battle, never saw them coming. Within 20 minutes, the ship's engines exploded, leaving it dead in space. Similar scenes played out across the fleet as human boarding parties attacked ship after ship. Not all were successful. Some were discovered and fierce battles raged through the corridors of Void vessels. But enough teams got through to create chaos throughout the enemy fleet. On the Oblivion, Krev received increasingly desperate reports. "Intruders on decks 3 through 7. Engine control not responding. Communications with the Eastern Battle Group lost." For the first time, Krev felt a flicker of uncertainty. These humans fought like no enemy he had ever encountered. Even when outnumbered and outgunned, they found ways to attack that defied conventional strategy. "Deploy all troops to the surface," he ordered. "We will crush their ground forces while dealing with these boarders." Thousands of Void Dominion dropships descended toward Luminary Prime, carrying the bulk of Krev's army. They landed in the open plains outside the major cities, disgorging waves of armored soldiers and battle machines. In the capital, Stone watched the enemy deployment with satisfaction. "They've taken the bait," he said to Governor Trill, who stood nearby. "Now we spring the trap." As the Void forces began their advance toward the city, the ground beneath them suddenly erupted. Hidden bunkers opened, revealing human tanks and artillery pieces that had been buried during the previous days. From camouflage positions in the hills, snipers and missile teams opened fire. The Void troops, expecting to face defenders inside the city walls, found themselves caught in a massive crossfire. Their rigid formation, designed for urban assault, became a liability in the open as human forces attacked from all sides. Major Wilson led a squadron of armored vehicles in a flanking maneuver that cut the enemy force in half. His troops moved with a speed and coordination that stunned the Void commanders, who were used to facing the more cautious coalition forces. A Void officer, wounded and captured during the battle, stared at Wilson with a mixture of fear and confusion. "How do you keep fighting?" he asked, watching as a human soldier continued to advance despite a serious injury to his arm. "You should be dead from such wounds." Wilson shrugged. "We're hard to kill." Indeed, the humans displayed physical capabilities that shocked both allies and enemies. They fought through injuries that would incapacitate other species. They operated in conditions of extreme heat, cold, and pressure. Their endurance seemed limitless as the battle stretched from hours into days. In orbit, the space battle had turned into a war of attrition. The human fleet had suffered heavy losses with only 7 vessels still operational, but they had destroyed or disabled 33 enemy ships, a remarkable achievement given the odds. Captain Freeman, who had returned to the Thunderchild during the battle, directed her damaged ship with skill and determination. The bridge was filled with smoke. Emergency systems flashed red warnings, but she remained calm. "Target the Oblivion's command tower," she ordered. "All remaining power to forward guns." The Thunderchild turned slowly, its engines struggling, and fired a concentrated beam at the massive dreadnought. The shot struck home, penetrating the Oblivion's weakened shields and blasting away part of its bridge section. On the Oblivion, Warlord Krev was thrown to the floor as explosions tore through his command center. Alarms blared, and emergency force fields activated, preventing the bridge from decompressing completely. Krev stood, rage building within him. "Prepare my shuttle," he ordered. "I will take command of the ground forces personally." As his shuttle descended toward the planet, Krev watched the battle unfold below. His forces were in disarray, facing an enemy that seemed to be everywhere at once. The humans fought not just with strength and technology, but with a strategic flexibility that made them unpredictable. For the first time in his long career of conquest, Warlord Krev felt a new sensation: doubt. These Deathworlders had changed everything. The question was no longer if they would defeat his forces, but how much of his fleet would survive to warn the Void Dominion of this new and terrible threat from Earth. The battle for Luminary Prime entered its 6th day with no sign of ending. The once beautiful capital city now stood scarred by warfare, its crystal spires broken, its wide avenues filled with the wreckage of combat. Yet amid the destruction, the defenders held firm. Human soldiers fought alongside the few Luminari who had taken up arms, creating a resistance that the Void Dominion could not break. Commander Stone stood on a rooftop observation post, surveying the battlefield through binoculars. The main Void force had been pushed back to their landing zones, but they were regrouping for another assault. Their numbers remained substantial despite heavy losses. "Sir," Major Wilson approached, his armor dented and scorched from recent fighting. "We've intercepted communications from the enemy command. Warlord Krev has established a forward base in the northern mountains. He's directing operations from there." Stone lowered his binoculars, a plan already forming in his mind. "Krev is the key. The Void Dominion forces follow a strict chain of command. Without their warlord, they'll fall into disarray. The mountain base is heavily guarded," Wilson warned. "Frontal assault would be suicide." Stone's expression hardened. "Who said anything about a frontal assault?" 3 hours later, As darkness fell over Luminary Prime, a small group of human soldiers gathered at the edge of the city. Just 12 individuals, each chosen for their specific skills. Commander Stone stood before them, his face illuminated by the dim glow of emergency lights. "This mission is voluntary," he told them. "I won't order anyone to come. The odds of success are low and the odds of survival are lower." One by one, the soldiers stepped forward. No hesitation, no questions. Stone nodded, pride evident in his eyes despite his attempt to maintain a neutral expression. "We move out in 10 minutes, light equipment only. We'll be traveling fast and quiet." As the team prepared, Governor Trill approached Stone. The Luminary leader had aged visibly during the past week, the stress of seeing his world destroyed weighing heavily on him. "Your plan is to capture Warlord Krev?" he asked softly. Stone nodded. "Cut off the head and the body falls." Trill's large eyes studied Stone with curiosity. "You could simply bomb his location from orbit. Why risk your lives to capture him?" "Because dead men tell no tales," Stone replied. "We need Krev alive to send a message back to the Void Dominion." "What message?" Stone checked his weapon before answering. "That humans are not to be trifled with." The small team departed under cover of darkness, slipping through enemy lines with a stealth born of rigorous training. They moved through the Gao, rugged terrain like shadows, avoiding void patrols and observation posts. By dawn, they had reached the foothills of the northern mountains. Above them loomed their target, a natural fortress of rock and ice, now bristling with Void Dominion defenses. Thermal. "Imaging shows heavy concentration of troops at all main entrances," reported Sergeant Anna Lee, the team's scout. "But there's a maintenance shaft on the eastern face that appears lightly guarded." Stone studied the holographic display showing the mountain fortress. "That's our way in. We'll move at dusk." As the team rested during the daylight hours, hidden in a cave, Stone received a communication from Captain Freeman in orbit. "Status report, Commander?" "We're in position," Stone replied quietly, "ready to move on the target at nightfall. How are things up there?" Freeman's voice came through tired but determined. "We're holding. The enemy fleet is down to 17 ships, but the Oblivion is still operational despite the damage we inflicted. They're maintaining orbital bombardment of the western continent. Any word from Earth?" "Nothing yet. Communications are still being jammed across most frequencies." Stone nodded to himself. They were on their own, as expected. "Maintain position. As long as possible, Captain. If the situation becomes untenable, you have authorization to withdraw the fleet." "With respect, sir. We're not going anywhere." Stone smiled faintly. "Understood." Stone out. As darkness fell again, the team began their ascent. The mountain was steep, the air thin and cold. For most species, these conditions would make combat operations impossible. For humans, raised on a high-gravity world with extreme climate variations, it was merely challenging. They reached the maintenance shaft without detection. Sergeant Lee worked quickly to bypass the security systems while the others provided cover. Within minutes, they were inside the fortress. The interior was a maze of corridors carved into the mountain, filled with void troops moving with purpose. The human team used their smaller size and superior agility to avoid detection, slipping through maintenance tunnels and air ducts. Stone's tactical display showed their target, a large chamber at the heart of the fortress, heavily guarded. According to intelligence, Warlord Krev would be there, directing the final offensive against the city. "We'll need a distraction," Stone whispered, as they gathered in a service junction near their objective. Corporal Ryan, the team's explosives expert, grinned. "I've got just the thing, sir." 5 minutes later, a series of explosions rocked the northern section of the fortress. Alarms blared as Void troops rushed to respond to what seemed like a major attack. In the confusion, Stone's team struck. They emerged from hiding and charged the now lightly guarded command center. The few remaining Void soldiers fought fiercely, but were overwhelmed by the speed and precision of the human assault. Stone burst into the main chamber to find Warlord Krev standing before a tactical display. The Void commander turned, his red eyes widening with surprise behind his helmet. "Impossible," Krev growled, drawing his energy blade. No species could penetrate this fortress. Stone raised his weapon. Humans specialize in the impossible. Surrender, warlord. Your forces are defeated. Krev lunged forward with shocking speed, his blade slicing through the air where Stone had stood a moment before. But the human commander was faster, dodging the attack and countering with a precise shot that disabled Krev's armor at the joint. The warlord staggered, but remained standing. You think this changes anything? The Dominion will send more ships, more warriors. We will burn your world as we have burned countless others. Stone moved with blinding speed, closing the distance between them before Krev could react. A swift strike knocked the energy blade away, and another brought the warlord to his knees. You misunderstand the situation, Stone said calmly. We didn't come here to fight a war of attrition. We came to send a message. Outside the fortress, the night sky suddenly filled with light as new ships emerged from hyperspace. Not the 15 vessels of the original human fleet, but hundreds. The reinforcements from Earth had arrived. In orbit, Captain Freeman watched with relief as the massive human armada deployed around the planet. The Void Dominion fleet, already damaged and demoralized, began to retreat before this overwhelming force. Not so fast, Freeman muttered, opening a channel to the fleet commander. Admiral, the enemy dreadnought Oblivion is attempting to escape. Request permission to pursue. Permission granted, Captain, came the reply. Show them what happens when they threaten those under human protection. The Thunderchild, despite its battle damage, accelerated toward the fleeing dreadnought. The two ships engaged in a final, desperate battle at the edge of the system. When it was over, the Oblivion drifted powerless, its engines destroyed and weapons disabled. On the surface, news of the reinforcements spread quickly. The remaining Void ground forces, learning of their warlord's capture and their fleet's defeat, began to surrender. The battle for Luminary Prime was over. 2 days later, in the partially restored Luminary Council chamber, a historic meeting took place. Representatives from Earth, the Luminary, and the Galactic Coalition gathered to discuss the future. At Dao, the center of the chamber, a secure containment field held Warlord Krev, now stripped of his armor and weapons. Commander Stone addressed the assembly. The Void Dominion has been driven from the Nexus system. Their invasion fleet is destroyed, or captured. But this victory means nothing if we don't prevent future attacks. He turned to Krev. You will return to your people with a message. The Luminari are now under human protection. Any aggression against them will be met with the full force of Earth's military. Is that understood? Krev glared but nodded slowly. It will be conveyed. Ambassador. Reed, representing the Coalition, stepped forward. The Coalition Council extends its deepest gratitude to Earth for this intervention. As promised, we offer full membership in the galactic community, with all rights and privileges. President Rivera, who had arrived with the reinforcement fleet, accepted with dignity. Earth looks forward to peaceful cooperation with all species of the galaxy, but let this also serve as a reminder. Humanity will always stand against tyranny and aggression wherever they appear. Governor Trill, his people saved from extinction, bowed deeply to the human representatives. The Luminari will never forget what Earth has done for us. Our worlds are now bound together by the strongest of bonds, that of survival. In the days that followed, a new order began to take shape. Earth established a permanent defensive outpost in the Nexus system, staffed by a rotating contingent of human forces. The Luminari, their confidence shaken by the invasion, started to develop their own defensive capabilities with human guidance. Throughout the Coalition, news of the human victory spread, causing both excitement and concern. The silver halls of the Lumari Grand Council echoed with sounds of panic. Ambassador Trell stood at the center of the circular chamber, his blue-tinged skin glistening under the soft lights. Around him, 20 council members whispered in fear. The holographic display above showed their home system under attack. The Void Armada has destroyed our outer colonies, Trell said, his four-fingered hand pointing at the display. 4 billion dead in just 6 days. Elder Mina rose from her seat, her old voice wavering. We are not warriors, Ambassador. We never have been. Our species evolved in peace. She was right. The Lumari home planet, Luma, orbited a gentle star. Their world had low gravity, a perfect climate, and almost no natural dangers. Evolution had shaped them into tall, slender beings with delicate bodies and brilliant minds. They built a civilization based on art, science, and harmony. Violence was almost unknown among their kind. "We cannot fight the Void Armada," another council member said. "Their ships outnumber ours 10 to 1. Their weapons are made for war. Ours are made for mining and exploration." Trell closed his large eyes for a moment. "Then we must call for help." "From whom?" Elder Mina asked. "We have contacted all neighboring systems. None have the power to stand against the Void." Trell walked to the control panel and pressed his palm against it. A new star map appeared showing a section of space far from Lumari territory. "There is a system here beyond the Scarlet Nebula. We have never contacted them because their world is classified as a death world." A gasp spread through the chamber. Death worlds were planets with extreme conditions: high gravity, harsh weather, dangerous animals, and violent geological activity. The few species that evolved on such worlds were known to be tough and aggressive. "You cannot suggest we contact them," Elder Mina said. "Deathworlders are unpredictable, dangerous." "More dangerous than the Void Armada?" Trell asked quietly. "We face extinction, Elder. We must try everything." After hours of debate, the Council made their decision. A distress signal would be sent toward the Deathworld system. The message was simple: peaceful civilization faces extinction. Request immediate assistance. We offer knowledge and friendship in return. The signal beamed out into the darkness of space, traveling faster than light through channels the Lumari had discovered centuries ago. Trell watched it go, wondering if they had just called for saviors or something far worse. Captain Alex Reed stood on the bridge of the Earth Defense Fleet flagship Thunderbolt, looking at the strange message displayed on the main screen. Behind him, Admiral Patel and the ship's AI specialist, Dr. Tom Hayes, were deep in conversation. "It's definitely not human," Dr. Hayes said, pushing his glasses up. "The signal format is like nothing in our database, but we've managed to translate the content. It appears to be a distress call." Admiral Patel frowned. "Or a trap. We've never had contact with alien life. This could be a way to lure our ships out." Reed studied the message again. 6 months ago, Earth had finally achieved faster-than-light travel. The Thunderbolt was humanity's most advanced ship, built to explore beyond their solar system. They had expected to spend years searching for intelligent life. Instead, life had reached out to them first. "The signal origin is about 20 light-years away," Reed said. "That's within our range." "You're not seriously suggesting we respond?" Admiral Patel asked. Reed turned to face him. "Humanity has wondered for centuries if we're alone in the universe. Now we know we're not, and the first message we receive is a cry for help. What does it say about us if we ignore it?" "It says we're cautious," the Admiral replied. "You know Earth's history. First contacts rarely end well for the less advanced." Sighed. Dr. Hayes cleared his throat. "Actually, the message suggests a fairly advanced civilization. The transmission method alone indicates technology beyond our current understanding." Reed nodded. "Which means we could learn from them. Admiral, this is why we built the Thunderbolt. To explore, to make contact, to learn." The Admiral paced the bridge, hands clasped behind his back. The other crew members pretended to focus on their stations, but Reed knew everyone was listening. "I'll need to consult with Earth Command," Admiral Patel finally said. "This decision goes beyond my authority." Days later, Earth Command gave their answer. The Thunderbolt would investigate the distress signal. They would bring weapons just in case, but their mission was peaceful contact and assistance if possible. Captain Reed addressed his crew of 200 before departure. "We are about to make history, the first humans to make contact with an alien civilization. We don't know what we'll find, friends, enemies, or something we can't even imagine. But we go with open minds and open hands, ready to help if we can." The crew cheered, They were the best Earth had to offer: scientists, engineers, medical experts, and yes, soldiers. Earth wasn't a peaceful planet. Its history was filled with war, and its environment had shaped humans into tough, adaptable beings. They could survive in deserts, Arctic conditions, high mountains, and deep seas. They had endured plagues, natural disasters, and their own destructive tendencies. What the humans didn't know was that most galactic civilizations classified Earth as a Class 5 death world, one of the most dangerous inhabited planets known. Its high gravity, extreme weather, deadly microorganisms, and predatory wildlife had forged a species that could survive conditions that would kill most other intelligent beings in the galaxy. The Thunderbolt prepared for its jump into the unknown. Engineers ran final checks on the FTL drive while weapons specialists loaded missile bays and calibrated defense systems. FTL drive charged and ready, Captain, the ship's navigator reported. Reed settled into his command chair and looked at the star map showing their destination. Ladies and gentlemen, we are about to answer a call for help from the stars. Let's show the universe what humanity is made of. He nodded to the navigator. Execute jump. The massive engines of the Thunderbolt hummed to life. Space folded around the ship, and Earth's most advanced vessel disappeared in a flash of light, carrying humanity's first ambassadors toward a meeting that would change the course of galactic history forever. What none of them realized was that the peaceful Lumari were about to summon the most efficient warriors the galaxy had ever seen. Humans from Earth, the Deathworlders who had evolved on a planet that tried to kill them every day, and who had not only survived but thrived. The Thunderbolt emerged from its FTL jump with a flash of light. On the bridge, warning alarms blared as sensors detected debris floating everywhere. Full stop, Captain Reed ordered. Damage report. No damage, Captain, the ship's engineer replied. The alarms are detecting objects in our path. Reed stared at the main screen. It showed a sight none of them had expected: the remains of a battle. Destroyed ships drifted in the blackness of space, some still burning with strange blue-green flames that somehow burned without oxygen. Are we too late? Reed whispered. Lieutenant Kelly, the communications officer, called out. Captain, I'm picking up transmissions. Multiple frequencies, some kind of battle communications. Put it on screen. Let's see what we're dealing with. The view changed to show a planet with 3 moons. Around it, small ships darted between larger vessels. Energy beams cut through space, and explosions bloomed like deadly flowers. The battle is still ongoing, Commander Wu said, the tactical officer studying the readings. Based on ship designs and movement patterns, we have 2 distinct groups. The larger force appears to be attacking the smaller one. The smaller force must be the ones who sent the distress call, Reed said. Can we communicate with them? Lieutenant Kelly worked at her station, sending our first contact message on all frequencies, translating into the format they used in their distress call. Minutes passed. The crew watched as the battle continued in the distance. The defending ships were losing ground, their formation breaking apart as the attackers pressed forward. Captain, Kelly said suddenly, we're receiving a response. The screen changed to show a face that was clearly not human. The alien had blue-tinted skin, large oval eyes with no visible pupils, and a slender neck that seemed too fragile to support its head. When it spoke, its mouth barely moved and the ship's computer translated. Unknown vessel, this is Ambassador Trell of the Lumari Confederation. Your arrival is unexpected. Are you from the Death World? Reed stepped forward. I am Captain Alex Reed of the Earth Defense Fleet ship Thunderbolt. We received your distress call and came to offer assistance, and yes, we are from Earth. The alien's large eyes widened. You came. You actually came. There was wonder in its voice. We need to meet immediately. I am sending coordinates for docking with our diplomatic vessel. Please hurry. The Void Armada grows closer to our homeworld every hour. The transmission ended. Reed turned to his crew. Prepare a first contact team. Full environmental suits until we confirm the atmosphere is safe. And I want a security detail. Armed, but weapons concealed. We're here to help, but we're not going in blind. The Lumari diplomatic vessel was a work of art. curved lines of silver and crystal forming a ship that looked more like a sculpture than a space vessel. The Thunderbolt docked with it, magnetic clamps engaging with a solid thunk. Reed led the team of 10 through the airlock. Dr. Anna Green, the chief science officer, scanned the air. "Atmosphere is breathable, Captain. Lower oxygen than Earth, no detectable pathogens. We can remove our helmets." As they did, a door at the end of the docking tube slid open. 3 Lumari stood waiting. In person, they were even more striking, at least 7 feet tall but impossibly thin, with 4-fingered hands and skin that seemed to shimmer with a faint blue glow. Ambassador Trell stepped forward. "Welcome, humans of Earth. We are—" He stopped suddenly, staring at the humans with what looked like shock. "Is something wrong, Ambassador?" Reed asked. Trell seemed to collect himself. "No, forgive me. It's just that you are not what we expected," Dr. Green whispered to Reed. "I think we scare them." Reed realized she was right. The Lumari were staring at the humans with the same caution humans might show toward a large predator. He smiled, trying to look friendly, and took a slow step forward with his hand extended. "We come in peace, Ambassador. We're here to help." Trell hesitated, then extended his slender hand. When they touched, Reed was careful to be gentle. The Lumari's bones felt as fragile as a bird's. "Please follow us to the council chamber," Trell said. "We have much to discuss." The council chamber was a large room with a round table. The walls were transparent, showing the battle that continued, to rage at a distance. Reed noticed that the Lumari moved with a grace that seemed almost like floating, a result, he guessed, of evolving on a low-gravity world. As they sat, Reed became aware of how the chairs creaked under the humans' weight. The Lumari looked uncomfortable, clearly not used to beings as dense and heavy as humans. "Let me explain our situation," Trell said. "The Void Armada appeared in our system 3 weeks ago. They are resource hunters who strip planets bare. We tried to negotiate, but they see us as weak. Already they have destroyed 4 of our colony worlds." "How large is their force?" Commander Wu asked. "Over 200 warships," one of the other Lumari said. "Our defense fleet had only 50 and half are now destroyed." Wu exchanged looks with Reed. By Earth standards, this was a small conflict. The Earth defense fleet had thousands of ships. "What are your weapons capabilities?" Wu continued. "Our ships carry mining lasers converted for defense. They were never meant for war." Trell's voice was sad. "The Lumari have been at peace for 5,000 years. We have no warriors among us." Reed leaned forward. "Ambassador, I need to be clear about something. We came to help, but we are just one ship. We have advanced weapons, but against 200 enemy vessels, there are limits to what we can do." "One ship?" Trell seemed confused. "But your message said Earth Defense Fleet. We assumed." "The Thunderbolt is part of Earth's fleet, yes," Reed explained. "But we can't bring our entire military force on a first contact mission. We would need to return to Earth and request reinforcements." The hope in Trell's eyes dimmed. "We may not have that much time. The Void Armada will reach our homeworld in days." Suddenly, alarms blared. One of the Lumari rushed to a control panel. "Ambassador, Void Armada ships are changing course. They've detected the human vessel and are moving to intercept." Reed stood up. "How many ships?" 5 of their destroyer class. Reed tapped his communicator. "Thunderbolt, this is Captain Reed. Battle stations. We have hostile forces incoming." The Lumari stared at him. "Captain," Trell said with disbelief, "you cannot mean to fight. 5 Void destroyers would overwhelm 3 of our largest warships." Reed smiled grimly. "Ambassador, you called for help from a death world. Now you get to see what that means. My people evolved on a planet that tried to kill us every day. We've been fighting each other, our environment, diseases, predators, for our entire history." He gestured to the view of the approaching enemy ships. "Those 5 vessels are about to learn why no one should threaten a species that evolved as the apex predator on a world of apex predators." "But your ship is alone," Trell said, still not understanding. We're human, Reed replied simply. Alone is when we're at our most dangerous. As the human team hurried back to their ship, Trell watched them go. These strange, stocky creatures moved with purpose and confidence. Where the Lumari saw certain defeat, the humans saw a challenge. For the first time since the invasion began, Trell felt something new. Hope. Ambassador Trell and the Lumari Council watched from their diplomatic vessel as the 5 Void Armada destroyers approached the lone human ship. The council members had gathered in the observation room, their slender bodies tense with worry. The humans will die, Elder Mina said sadly. We should not have called them here just to watch them be destroyed. Trell wasn't so sure. There was something about these humans that the Lumari didn't understand. Something dangerous. On the main screen they could see the Thunderbolt. It was smaller than the Void Destroyers, but its design was unlike anything the Lumari had seen before. Where Lumari ships were elegant and Void ships were bulky, the human vessel looked predatory, like it was built not just to travel through space, but to hunt. The Void ships are within firing range, a Lumari technician announced. They are charging weapons. On the bridge of the Thunderbolt, Captain Reed stood calmly as his crew prepared for battle. All hands to battle stations, he ordered. Shields at maximum, weapons hot. Lieutenant Maria Torres, the tactical officer, spoke up. Captain, I've analyzed their attack patterns from the sensor data. These ships rely on overwhelming force, rather than strategy. They expect enemies to run or surrender. Reed nodded. Then let's show them something new. Helm, prepare for attack pattern Delta. Engineering, I need everything you can give to the engines and forward shields. The crew worked with practiced efficiency. Unlike the Lumari, humans had never known 5,000 years of peace. Even in times without war, they trained for it. It was in their blood, their history. Enemy ships firing, Commander Wu reported. The first volley from the Void Destroyers lit up space. Energy beams and missiles streaked toward the Thunderbolt. Evasive maneuvers, Reed ordered calmly. Return fire, targeting engines and weapons only. Let's disable rather than destroy if possible. The Thunderbolt moved with startling speed for its size, dodging most of the incoming fire. What hits it did take were absorbed by its shields. On the Lumari vessel, the council watched in amazement. Impossible, Elder Mina whispered. No ship can move like that under such gravity stress. The crew would be crushed. Trell remembered the solid feel of the human captain's hand. These creatures were dense, heavy. Their world had shaped them to withstand forces that would kill a Lumari instantly. They're not just surviving, he realized aloud. They're thriving, in conditions we can't even tolerate. The Thunderbolt's return fire was precise and devastating. Human weapons designed to function in Earth's atmospheric conditions and tested in the harshness of space cut through the first Void Destroyer's shields like they weren't there. Direct hit, Torres reported. Enemy Vessel 1 has lost engines and weapons. They're adrift. Reed nodded. Target the second ship, same strategy. The Void Armada, facing an enemy that didn't flee or fall easily, changed tactics. The 4 remaining destroyers spread out, trying to surround the Thunderbolt. They're adapting, Wu warned. So will we, Reed replied. Helm, bring us about. Torres, target their lead ship's command center. The Thunderbolt twisted in space, pulling, a maneuver that subjected the crew to forces that would have killed most other species. Inside the ship, the humans barely noticed. Their bodies, evolved on a high-gravity world filled with dangers, could handle stresses that would liquefy a Lumari's organs. The human ship fired its main cannon. A beam of concentrated energy, hotter than the surface of a star, struck the lead, Void Destroyer. The enemy ship's shields failed and the beam cut through its hull. Direct hit to their command center, Torres reported. Lead Destroyer is going dark. 2 down, 3 to go. But the remaining Void ships were now firing continuously, pouring everything they had at the human vessel. Shields at 60%. Wu called out. We can't take this barrage forever. Reed studied the tactical display. We need to end this quickly. Torres, prepare all missile tubes. Target the 3 remaining ships simultaneously. All missiles, sir? That's our entire complement. Do it, Lieutenant. It's time these bullies learned what happens when you push humans into a corner. From the Lumari ship, Trell watched as the Thunderbolt suddenly seemed to erupt with fire. Dozens of small objects shot out from the human vessel, streaking toward the Void destroyers. "What are those?" Elder Mina asked. "Some kind of projectile weapons," Trell guessed. The Void ships tried to shoot down the incoming missiles, but there were too many. Explosions bloomed across space as some missiles were destroyed, but most found their targets. The results were beyond anything the Lumari had imagined. The Void destroyers, ships that had destroyed entire Lumari defense fleets, were torn apart by the human weapons. One exploded completely. Another broke in half, its power core going critical and creating a miniature sun that quickly died. The third drifted dead in space, its systems fried. In less than 20 minutes, one human ship had defeated 5 Void Armada destroyers. When Captain Reed and his team returned to the Lumari diplomatic vessel, they were met with a very different reception. The council members still seemed afraid, but now their fear was tinged with awe. That was... Elder Mina struggled for words. "We have never seen combat like that." Reed shrugged. "Standard tactics against a numerically superior force. Nothing special." "Nothing special," Trell repeated in disbelief. "Your ship moved in ways that would kill our people. Your weapons, one shot disabled an entire destroyer." Lieutenant Torres stepped forward. "Their technology isn't actually more advanced than yours in many ways. They just designed it for war. We detected many weaknesses in their systems." "Weaknesses?" another council member asked. Torres nodded. "Their shields are optimized against your mining lasers, but our weapons operate on different principles. Their hulls are strong but brittle at key structural points. And their tactics..." She shook her head. "They rely on fear and overwhelming force. They've never faced an enemy who fought back effectively." The Lumari looked at each other. This was a perspective they had never considered. "But they still have nearly 200 ships," Elder Mina pointed out. "And you are just one vessel." Captain Reed smiled. "For now, but I've sent a message back to Earth. I've requested reinforcements, and I've explained what's happening here." "Will your people come?" Trell asked. "Will they help us fight a war that isn't theirs?" Reed's face grew serious. "Ambassador, there's something you need to understand about humans. Throughout our history, we've fought each other over resources, land, ideas. But when we see a bully attacking someone who can't fight back..." He shook his head. "That unites us like nothing else." "What does that mean?" Trell asked. "It means," Reed said, "that when I told Earth that peaceful beings were being slaughtered by aggressors, I received an immediate response. The 7th Fleet is already preparing to jump to this system." "How many ships is that?" one of the council members asked. Reed's smile returned. 50 warships to start, with more to follow if needed." The Lumari stared in shock. 50 warships, each potentially as powerful as the Thunderbolt. "Your people would do this for strangers?" Trell asked in wonder. "We would," Reed confirmed. "Because that's what humans do. We protect those who can't protect themselves." He looked out at the stars. "The Void Armada thinks they're the predators in this galaxy. They're about to learn they're wrong." For the first time since the invasion began, Trell felt not just hope, but certainty. The Deathworlders had come, and they had brought with them something the Void Armada had never encountered before: Earth's fury. 3 days after the Thunderbolt's victory over the 5 Void destroyers, the Lumari Grand Council gathered in their largest meeting hall. The space was filled not just with council members, but with scientists, engineers, and ordinary citizens. At the center of the room stood Captain Reed and his senior officers. "The Void Armada has pulled back to regroup," Ambassador Trell announced to the crowd. "They lost 5 destroyers to a single human vessel, and now they are afraid. For the first time, they don't know what to expect." Murmurs spread through the gathered Lumari. Elder Mina stepped forward, her eyes fixed on the humans. "Captain Reed has brought us an opportunity," she said. "A chance not just to survive, but to forge an Alliance with a species whose strengths complement our weaknesses. Reed nodded. My people are warriors by nature. Earth shaped us to be tough, adaptable, and, when necessary, aggressive. But we respect those who choose peace. We admire what your civilization has built. The question before us, Trell continued, is whether to accept the humans' help and form a formal alliance. They offer protection. In return, they ask for cultural and technological exchange. A Lumari scientist raised his hand. What do you want from us? You clearly have superior weapons. Technology. Lieutenant Torres shook her head. Superior weapons, yes, but your energy generation systems are more efficient than ours. Your medical technology is remarkable, and your understanding of faster-than-light physics is beyond what Earth has achieved. Dr. Green, the Thunderbolt science officer, added, we don't want to make you into warriors. We want to learn from your 5,000 years of peace while offering our protection. The debate lasted hours. Some Lumari feared that bringing humans into their civilization would change it forever. Others argued that extinction at the hands of the Void Armada was the only other option. In the end, the vote was unanimous. The Lumari would ally with the humans of Earth. 2 days later, space rippled and tore open as 50 Earth warships emerged from FTL jumps. The vessels varied in size and design, but all had the same predatory look as the Thunderbolt. The flagship, EDF Indomitable, was 3 times the size of the Thunderbolt and bristled with weapons. On the bridge of the Indomitable, Admiral Jack Foster watched as his fleet formed up in Lumari space. Captain Reed reports that the Lumari Council has agreed to our terms, his communications officer reported. They're sending over technical advisors to help us understand the local space and enemy tactics. Foster nodded. At 60 years old, he had seen humanity fight itself in a dozen conflicts. Now they would fight for someone else. Inform all ships. This is not a peacekeeping mission. This is war. The Void Armada has slaughtered billions of innocent beings. They will not stop, unless we make them. On the Lumari homeworld, Commander Ben Wilson led a team of human soldiers and engineers. Unlike the diplomats on the Thunderbolt, these were Earth's warriors. They moved with dangerous grace, their bodies built for Earth's heavy gravity, making them seem unnaturally strong in the Lumari's lighter environment. Wilson met with Trell in a building that had once been a cultural center, but was now converted to a military headquarters. Maps and displays covered the walls. The Void Armada has established forward bases on these 2 moons, Trell explained, pointing to the displays. Our people tried to defend them, but... Wilson nodded, understanding what Trell couldn't say. The Lumari defenders had been slaughtered. We're going to take those bases back, Wilson said. My team will lead the assault. Trell looked shocked. But the Void forces their number in the thousands. How many of your people are still on those moons? Civilians? Perhaps a few hundred managed to hide, Trell admitted. We lost contact days ago. Wilson's face hardened. Then we go in fast and hit them hard. We get your people out. But your team is only 30 humans. Wilson smiled grimly. 30 humans from a death world. Trust me, Ambassador. That's more than enough. The assault on the larger moon began at what the Lumari called Dark Side Hour, the period when the moon was furthest from the sun. Human dropships designed to enter planetary atmospheres at speeds that would tear Lumari ships apart screamed down through the thin atmosphere. Wilson led the first team onto the surface. The moon had only 1/6 of Earth's gravity, making the humans feel almost weightless. But where this would hinder most species, the humans adapted instantly. Their bodies, used to functioning in much heavier conditions, moved with startling speed. Alpha Team, secure the northern entrance. Beta, with me to find survivors. Gamma, set up the surprise package for our friends, Wilson ordered through his helmet comm. The Void Armada forces had built their base around a Lumari research facility. They never expected a direct ground assault. Their defenses were focused on stopping ships, not soldiers. The first Void Guards didn't even see the humans coming. Trained on a world where predators could hide in plain sight, The human soldiers moved silently through shadows that the Void troops thought were secure. When the fighting started, it was brutal and quick. The Void soldiers were tough by most galactic standards, but they had never faced creatures evolved from ambush predators, with reflexes honed by thousands of generations of survival on a world where everything was trying to kill them. Wilson's team found the surviving Lumari hiding in underground storage areas. The thin, blue-skinned civilians looked at the humans with as much fear as they showed toward their captors. "We're not going to hurt you," Wilson assured them, though he knew his battle armor and weapons made him look terrifying. "We're allies of the Lumari Council. We've come to take you home." One brave Lumari stepped forward. "The guards will return for their inspection soon. They will kill us all if they find you here." Wilson smiled behind his helmet. "The guards won't be coming back. Now come with us if you want to live." By the time the Void Armada realized what was happening, Wilson's team had already evacuated all the Lumari survivors and planted explosive charges throughout the base. From their extraction ships, the humans and rescued Lumari watched as the entire facility erupted in precisely calculated explosions. When they returned to the Lumari homeworld, the rescued civilians told stories that spread quickly through the population. Stories of humans moving with impossible speed, fighting with terrifying efficiency, and showing absolute fearlessness in the face of overwhelming odds. But they also told of humans who were gentle with the rescued, who shared their water and food, who carried injured Lumari with careful hands that could crush bones but chose instead to heal. In the Grand Council chamber, Wilson delivered his report to Trell and the elders. "Both moons are clear of enemy forces. We destroyed their bases and equipment. They won't be using those positions again." Elder Mina stared at him. "You lost no one? None of your soldiers died?" Wilson shrugged. 3 injured, no deaths. The Void troops weren't prepared for close combat with humans. Next time will be harder. They'll adapt. "How is this possible?" one council member asked. "They outnumbered you so greatly." "Numbers aren't everything," Wilson explained. "Earth taught us that, on our world, a single prey animal can be taken down by a lone predator a fraction of its size if the predator knows how to hunt. We've been the apex predator on Earth for thousands of years. We know how to hunt." Trell looked at the human commander with new understanding. The Lumari had called for help from a death world, expecting perhaps stronger bodies or more advanced weapons. What they had received was something else entirely. They had received natural warriors, a species whose very biology made them perfect for war, a species that had spent its entire history fighting and adapting, a species that could be gentle with friends and merciless with enemies. For the first time, the Void Armada was about to face a force they could not intimidate or overwhelm. They were about to face humans. 1 month after the arrival of Earth's 7th Fleet, the war had changed dramatically. The Void Armada, once advancing steadily through Lumari space, now fought for every position. What had been an easy conquest had become a brutal struggle against an enemy unlike any they had faced before. In the command center on the Lumari homeworld, Captain Reed, Admiral Foster, and Ambassador Trell studied the holographic map showing the current state of the conflict. "We've pushed them back from 3 star systems," Admiral Foster said, pointing to green areas on the map. "But they're still holding strong here and here." He indicated 2 red zones. Trell nodded. "Our people are amazed by what your fleet has accomplished, but the Void Armada still has more ships." "Numbers don't win wars," Foster replied. "Strategy, tactics, and will to fight do." Lieutenant Torres entered the room, carrying a data pad. "Admiral, we've intercepted communications from the Void Command ship. Their Supreme Commander is coming personally to oversee the war." "They're getting desperate," Reed observed. "Good." A Lumari communications officer rushed in. "Ambassador, we're receiving a transmission from the Void Armada. They're broadcasting on all frequencies." "Put it through," Trell ordered. The main screen lit up to show a harsh face. The Void species had gray, leathery skin with ridges along their skull and jaw. Their eyes were small and dark. This particular individual wore elaborate armor and decorations, that marked him as a leader. "I am Supreme Commander Drac of the Void Armada," the alien said, his voice translated by the computers. "I speak directly to the creatures who call themselves humans." Admiral Foster stepped forward. "This is Admiral Foster of the Earth Defense Fleet. We hear you." Drac's face showed contempt. "You have interfered in matters that do not concern you, human. The Lumari are weak. Their resources belong to the strong. This is the way of the universe." "Not our universe," Foster replied calmly. "I offer you one chance," Drac continued. "Withdraw your forces. Leave this sector. In return, we will spare your homeworld when we eventually reach it." The room went silent. Then something unexpected happened. Foster laughed. "You're threatening Earth?" The Admiral shook his head. "Supreme Commander, let me explain something about my people. We come from a world that tried to kill us every day of our evolution. We survived ice ages, mega predators, plagues, and our own wars. We clawed our way up from caves to the stars." Foster leaned closer to the screen. "And now you threaten to attack our home? The one place in the galaxy where everything, from the smallest microbe to the largest animal, evolved specifically to survive on a death world?" He smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "Please try, it would save us the trouble of coming to find you." Drac's expression darkened. "You have made your choice, now watch as we demonstrate true power." The screen went dark. What did he mean by that? Trell asked, worried. Before anyone could answer, alarms blared. The tactical display showed a massive, void fleet jumping into the system, more ships than they had seen gathered in one place before. 150 vessels, Torres reported. They're headed directly for the Lumari homeworld. The next day, battle raged in the space around Luma. The Earth fleet had positioned itself between the planet and the incoming Void Armada. Though outnumbered 3-1, the human ships fought with a coordination and ferocity that kept the enemy at bay. On the bridge of the Indomitable, Admiral Foster directed the battle. Screens showed human ships performing maneuvers that would tear apart vessels built by most civilizations. The Earth ships took damage but kept fighting long after most species would have surrendered or retreated. "Sir," his tactical officer called out, "the Void command ship is launching something toward the planet. Not missiles, some kind of drop pods." Foster understood immediately. "They're trying to land troops while we're busy with their fleet. Contact Commander Wilson." On the surface of Luma, Wilson and his ground forces watched the sky as hundreds of Void landing craft broke through the atmosphere. The Lumari civilians had been evacuated to underground shelters, but the human soldiers stood ready in the open. "They think they can win with numbers," Wilson told his troops. "Let's show them how wrong they are." The Void troops that emerged from the landing craft were bigger and more heavily armed than those the humans had faced on the moons. These were elite soldiers, the best the Void Armada had to offer, but they still weren't human. The battle that followed would become legend among both Lumari and Void. Human soldiers moved with impossible speed in Luma's low gravity. They used the environment in ways neither the defenders nor invaders had imagined. Where the Void expected direct confrontation, the humans ambushed. Where the Void established strong points, the humans bypassed them and struck from behind. In the orbit, the space battle reached its climax when Admiral Foster implemented what would later be called the Earth Gambit. 20 human ships broke formation and accelerated directly toward the Void command ship. It was a move so reckless, so seemingly suicidal, that the Void fleet hesitated, unsure how to respond. That moment of hesitation was all the humans needed. The 20 ships fired all weapons simultaneously, creating a gap in the Void defenses. Through that gap shot the Thunderbolt, carrying Captain Reed and a special operations team. "Boarding successful," Reed reported as his team breached the Void command ship. Moving to the central control room, fighting their way through the massive vessel, Reed's team reached their target, Supreme Commander Drac himself. When Reed burst into the command center, Drac stood with his guards, looking more annoyed than afraid. "You think capturing me will end this war?" Drac sneered. "The Void Armada does not surrender." Reed approached slowly. "We don't want your surrender. We want your understanding." Understanding of what? Of what happens when you threaten a species that evolved fighting everything, including itself. Reed activated his communicator. "Admiral, we're in position. Show them." In that moment, space lit up as 50 more Earth ships jumped into the system. The Earth's second fleet just arrived from home. "This is just the beginning," Reed told the shocked Void commander. "Earth has 5 more fleets this size, and unlike you, we don't conquer. We protect." 3 days later, Ambassador Trell stood with Captain Reed in the Lumari Grand Council chamber. Through the large windows, they could see the remains of the Void fleet being escorted from the system by human warships. "They've agreed to a treaty," Trell said, still amazed by what the humans had accomplished. "No Void Armada ship will enter Lumari space again." Reed nodded. They finally understood they couldn't win. Not against us. Elder Mina approached them. "Your people are leaving?" "Most of the fleet, yes," Reed confirmed. "They're needed elsewhere. But the Thunderbolt will stay, along with 5 other ships. The beginning of a permanent Earth embassy and protection force." "And the cultural exchange we discussed?" Trell asked. Reed smiled. "Already underway. Earth scientists are eager to learn from your people, and many Lumari have requested to visit Earth." "Is that safe?" Elder Mina asked. "Your world sounds so dangerous." "We'll take precautions," Reed assured her. "And perhaps in time some of your people might even want to learn how to defend themselves." Trell looked thoughtful. "When we sent that distress signal, we never imagined what would come of it. We needed saviors, and we got you." "Is that disappointment I hear?" Reed asked. "No," Trell said quickly. "Amazement. Your people could have conquered us as easily as the Void tried to. Instead, you protected us and asked only for friendship in return." Reed looked out at the stars. "Humans are predators, Ambassador. That's true. But we've learned something in our bloody history that the Void never did." "What's that?" "The strongest predators don't need to prove their strength through constant hunting. True strength is shown by protecting those who cannot protect themselves." Trell nodded slowly. "Perhaps that is why you evolved on a death world. To learn that lesson better than any of us could." As they stood watching the stars, a new chapter began for both civilizations. The peaceful Lumari and the warrior humans, different in almost every way, yet now bound together by something stronger than either technology or military might. Understanding. The Lumari had sent a desperate signal into the darkness, not knowing what would answer. They had feared war but gotten protectors instead. They had called for help from a death world and received not just soldiers, but friends. And the galaxy would never be the same again.